All right, welcome. This video is documenting the prediction that the US stock market, specifically, I think, the NASDAQ stock index, it could be the S&P or the Dow or any combination of the three. One of these, I think it will be the NASDAQ, will lose 13% of its value in one day on June 15th, 2026. Actually, it's believed that this will likely occur twice, and that the index will lose 13% also on July 2nd, and if not, July 15th, and if not, July 26th. Now, I think God is pointing to July 26th as being the date that Iran will sink US warships. That's also a prediction that is being made in this video. And it is also predicted that the Obamas, Michelle and Barack, will return to the White House after they are elected president and vice president on January 20th, 2029. Michelle will be the president, Barack will be the vice president. That will happen as a result of the prediction or the predicted plane crash in which Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom, the two predicted running mates in 2028, which will kill them. And because this is predicted to occur in August, the Democrat Party, in an emergency, will nominate Michelle and Barack. That will be 7 days after the predicted death of Donald Trump on July 26th, 2028. All right, let's get into it. As you can see, well, first of all, this video, the post date of it, on whatever platform you are watching it on, proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this email. As we can see here, this email was composed on June 6th. These predictions, all of them have been known prior to this date. In a few cases, a long time before this date. Well, in most of the cases, it's only the stock market prediction that hasn't been known a long time before this date. But even still, that has been known before today. But it doesn't matter because of the precision of that prediction, which is that on June 15th, the market will lose 13%. There's no mistaking that. This date simply needs to be before June 15th, which quite clearly June 6th is. Now, why do I say that? Well, the purpose of this, of course, is to prove some things. There's a purpose to this. These predictions are not merely for you to go, oh, cool, neat. You were able to know that ahead of time. First of all, these predictions will prove the righteous Christian God of the Bible. Okay, and so then you might say, well, cool, you were able to know that God was predicting these things ahead of time. Well, no, actually, that's not even the full extent of the purpose of this or these predictions, because already there really is an overwhelming amount of evidence for the righteous Christian God of the Bible. That said, nothing will compare in terms of evidence like this video. And please take note of that if you are a quote-unquote Christian, because you have been given a bag of gold with this video. It is a massive bag of gold, and Jesus warned Christians what would happen to them if they do not utilize their bag of gold. They will be banished to hell. And yes, Jesus was speaking to Christians when he said that. And so my advice is to never ever stop sharing this link or another link to a video on this channel. And don't just leave it in places where you frequently go and preach to the choir. Go to where the followers of the enemy go. Go to, in other words, places where people don't know Christ. And my advice is to not just copy paste, but leave kind of a unique sentence each time, different sentence. Doesn't matter what it is. You just want to avoid the algorithm thinking that you're copying and pasting. But that's essentially what you should be doing, is going crazy copying and pasting, but you don't want to close your account by the algorithm thinking that you're spam. Okay, so just put a little unique sentence with each time you post the link. Okay, now, yeah, the reason for this prediction is to prove the controversial things that I'll be saying in this video. And make no mistake, I know far better than you or anyone the reason and purpose for this video or these predictions that are from God. Okay? To not appreciate that is to miss entirely the point of these predictions. It isn't for you to go, oh, cool. It's to prove the controversial things that I am saying. And you might not agree with them. But make no mistake, what I am saying is that these predictions prove that what I am saying is true. And that's the purpose of the prediction. God has given me the authority, God has given me a voice through these predictions in order to prove these things. They're not that controversial, but for some people it is. And every one of the controversial things is controversial to someone, otherwise it wouldn't be controversial. And so make no mistake, once again, I'll just repeat it one more time. The reason for these predictions that are from God, and I know more than you, the reason and purpose for these predictions is to prove the controversial things that I am saying. There's no debate at all concerning these things. That's the purpose of the prediction. I hope I'm clear. Okay, so let's get into it. Now, the thing here is that these predictions are obviously quite something, you know, and each of them are unmistakable, right? I'm not predicting some vague things here. So that alone is enough. But if you if you somehow come to the conclusion that I got lucky with any one of these predictions, then the reasons that I'll be explaining in this video for how I know in advance will prove the matter. Because as you will see, no human being is creative enough to concoct these reasons in their own imagination. Obviously, you will see that these reasons are obviously from God. Like I'm saying, no one could have come up with these reasons for how I know ahead of time. And I'm just going to scratch the surface here with one particular sign, which contains multiple signs within the one sign. But what we will be talking about here is the 2026 Belmont Stakes horse race, which, believe it or not, God, through it, communicated all 5 of these predictions here and the precise dates for them, as you will see. Well, let's begin. On June 6th, the horse that won the Kentucky Derby, Golden Tempo, won the Belmont Stakes. Okay? Golden Tempo was the 13th horse to win the Kentucky Derby and the Belmont Stakes. The race started early due to impending weather. Okay? This is a clue for those that are watching God's signs. It's like radar here, picking up something here. Whoa, wait a second. Something unusual happened here. Weather. What's that symbolic of? Well, storms. What's that symbolic of? Well, it's symbolic of judgment. For example, the flood in the Bible, right? So this race started early due to impending weather, and this is symbolic of a warning of impending judgment for America, God's Gentile nation, the nation he is focused on. Some people ask me sometimes, well, why are you always so focused on signs, prophetic signs in America? And the answer to that is, well, because God is. God isn't providing signs like this for other countries, involving other countries. 99% of the time, when there is a prophetic sign in another country, it's in some way pointing to America. That's how it works. It's the same pattern we see in the Bible, where God is focused on Israel, his chosen nation, because America is an Israel. It is God's chosen nation. Okay? So the race started early due to impending. Okay, so the race started at 7:01 p.m. instead of the scheduled 7:04 p.m. It was the 26 plus 26th semi-prime number race. And so that's 52. It's the 52nd semi-prime number. A semi-prime number is a number that is only divisible by two other prime numbers, and God uses these for prophetic connections and signs. Anyway, the 26 plus 26th semi-prime number race that began at 7 p.m., hints at 7/26/26, July 26, 26. And I failed to write here because these are actually notes that I'm reading you. I'm typing out insights as they come to a friend of mine who knows what I'm talking about. And anyway, this July 26th, 26 date is the date it's predicted that the U.S. warships will be sunk, which is related to the symbolism of the flood, which gets us back to this weather warning, or the impending weather, symbolic of impending judgment. And the impending judgment for America that's being warned of here will occur on July 26th, 2026, when it is predicted that Iran will sink U.S. warships, specifically U.S. aircraft carriers, believe it or not. Okay, now the time 7:04 hints at 7/4, the symbolic date for America, America's birthday. That's the time it was supposed to occur, the race. But it didn't because of impending weather, which makes this impending judgment for America, including the time, revealing this. Now, the first place horse was number 9, which is the most important number in God's big picture, in God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel. As from the Bible, the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment. That's making this even more amazing, because as I was saying, the impending weather hints at judgment, and the number 1 horse was number 9. The second and third horses were number 7 and number 4, which gives us a second witness to this time, 7:04, hinting at, symbolizing America. And this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination, and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. That's not to say that there aren't other places where God's prophetic signs are being talked about accurately, or rather have insights that aren't on this channel. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that God's big picture of signs, patterns, and connections is only being explained on this channel, and it is through this principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming the matter. And here we have a great example of the second witness here, of the second and third horse being 7 and 4. But actually, when you take this another step, which I didn't write, the second and third horse also hints at 23, which is a number that hints at judgment. Well, first of all, 23 is the 9th prime number. And again, 9 is the most important number as it symbolizes God's judgment. This is, by the way, why the basketball president who wore number 23 in high school was inaugurated in 09. And by the way, also, God pairs 9 and 23 together to confirm the signs and connections in general. That's the building blocks of God's big picture of signs, which is only being explained on this channel. And I actually missed that and didn't write that down here, because this always happens. As I'm going through the information, I realize new things as I'm going through it when I'm reading it into a video. So we have a classic, and what I mean by classic is classic in terms of how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works with this pairing of 9 and 23. Okay, and so that's what we have here. Through the first horse and then the second and third horse. First horse being number 9 and then the second and third horse. Now, the reason for second and 3, or rather even the reason for 23 and why Obama wore number 23 is because in the Bible, Judah betrayed Joseph, a type for Jesus, for 20 pieces of silver, and Judas betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. That's one reason. It's also related to how in Mark, the gospel, Jesus told Peter that the rooster would not crow twice before he would deny him 3 times. And it also hints at the 23 chromosomes that people have. 23 pairs of chromosomes that were altered by taking the mark of the Antichrist, and which is taking it as tantamount to denying Jesus, like Peter did. All right. Now, the 13th horse to win the Kentucky Derby and the Belmont Stakes hints at America equals 13 colonies on the date 7-4. Okay, so we have this 7-4 here, with the second and third horse and the time 7:04. But we also have the number 13, which was the event that occurred on the date 7-4, when 13 colonies founded America, which is why why this horse was the 13th to achieve winning the Kentucky Derby and the Belmont Stakes. On July 26th, 2026, it is predicted that the USS Abraham Lincoln will be sunk. Abraham Lincoln equals 13th Amendment, which is about slavery. And in the Bible, the number 13 symbolizes the Antichrist and the Antichrist system that compels people to take the SHOT, past tense, is tantamount to slavery. Now, the race started at 7:01 p.m. on June 6th, and this is 7 weeks and 1 day before July 26th, 2026. So this confirms the date for this prediction for example, the USS Abraham Lincoln. Okay, now again on this date, it was number 9 that won, and the sinking of the U.S. warships will be judgment on America. So 7 weeks, 1 day after the time of the race, which was unusual because of the impending weather, which is judgment, of 7:01 p.m. 7 weeks, 1 day, 7:01 p.m. Number 9 won this race in the 11th state, which hints at 9/11, which was the massive warning of judgment for America. It was the 3rd year in a row that the race was not held at the Belmont Park due to construction. The race began 3 minutes early due to impending weather. Okay, so location changed, time change, 3rd year, 3 minutes. It is predicted that 3 U.S. warships will be sunk. Number 9 won in the 11th state. The horse was given 9-2 morning line odds, and 9-2 hints at 9 and 1 plus 1, which hints at 9/11. So the odds of the horse hint at 9/11, which makes it a second witness to this horse number 9 winning this race in the 11th state. The governor announced that this would be the final time that the race would be held in Saratoga Springs, because I guess Belmont Park is not in Saratoga Springs. The race will be in Belmont Park next year. It's had a hiatus of 3 years because of construction. So the governor was involved in this race because she announced that it would be the last time in Saratoga Springs. That hints at SS. The letter S is the 19th letter of the alphabet. This gives us 19 and 19. Governor Hochul is the 9 plus 11th semi-prime number governor. So she's the 20th semi-prime number governor. Forget what number that is. She's the 57th governor, which is the 20th semi-prime number, and that makes it the 9 plus the 11th semi-prime number governor. And her announcement regarded Saratoga Springs, which gives us two 19s. Now, Saratoga Springs in New York gives us 19 and 19 in the 11th state. That is two sets of 9/11, right? You take you take one of these ones from the 11, we split these two ones in the 11, carry them over to each 19, and gives you two sets of 9 and 11, which hints at a second 9/11, a second massive warning of judgment. Because why will it be a second warning of judgment instead of judgment? Because, well, obviously on July 26th this year, America isn't going to be destroyed. But it will be like a 9/11. It'll be a shock to the nation when 3 U.S. warships are sunk. Even just one U.S. aircraft carrier sunk would be a massive shock. And it will be. Okay? All right. Now, so the name Golden Tempo hints at Golden Trump. I'm not going to explain anything about how Trump is golden. You just think about it, the Trump Tower is gold. There's all kinds of gold signs regarding Trump. The gold dome, the gold card, and on and on and on. Recently, there was a golden statue of Trump that was dedicated at one of his golf courses, and on and on and on and on. Okay, so that's why the name of the winning horse, Golden Tempo, hints at Golden Trump. Now, this Golden Tempo win on June 6th is 25 months and 20 days, which hints at the number in Bible prophecy that symbolizes the period of the end times of 2,520 days. So it's 25 months, 20 days to the predicted Trump heart attack on July 26th, 2028. Tempo hints at heart rate, which hints at heart attack. It could be that the time of Trump's heart attack on July 26th, 2028 will be 7:01 or 7:04 p.m. Wouldn't be surprised. Maybe there'll be more confirmation of the specific time of the predicted heart attack in upcoming prophetic signs. But for now, we can just take note that this is quite interesting. God really, in a way, focused on the timing of the race. There could be more reason for it that we're going to learn later. Now, 701 hints at 71, which is the 9 plus 11th prime number. Trump called into Channel 9 News on 9/11. Trump famously called into Channel 9 News on 9/11. You can watch that conversation on YouTube if you would like. So right after, 9/11, on the day of 9/11, Trump called into Channel 9 News. Okay? It's well known that this happened. It's a part of the 9/11 sign. Trump was a part of the 9/11 sign. Well, let's expand on that a little bit here. Before the walls of security collapsed on Jericho, the Israelites blew trumpets, and they were led by Joshua, who died at the age of 110. Well, on 9/11, the towers that collapsed were 110 stories. And when Trump called into Channel 9 News, he inadvertently trumpeted how his tower on Wall Street had become the tallest tower in Lower Manhattan, as in the walls of security of Jericho collapsing. Now, Wall Street is named after the 9-foot-high wall of security that the Dutch built to keep the British and the Indians out. And that's why it's Channel 9 News here when Trump mentioned Wall Street. Okay? Golden Trump, won the race that began at 7:01. And the horse's number was number 9. Okay, that's why this is at 9/11, when Trump called into Channel 9 News. Because Golden Tempo is Trump. The race time, as I explained, gives us 9/11. The horse's number was 9, which hints at Channel 9 News when Trump called in on 9/11. Right? This is amazing, right? A horse race around a circuit track hints at the march around. Oh, by the way, one other thing. The race began at 7 p.m. and the Israelites blew 7 trumpets before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment. A horse race around a circuit track, right? A circular circuit is a horse race track, right? Hints at the march around Jericho before the trumpets were blown. The Israelites enacted a symbolic 3 sets of 7 when they blew the trumpets. And one of the 3 sets of 7 was the 7 trumpets. The race around the circuit track began at 7 p.m., 3 minutes early. This hints at 3 sets of 7 around the walls of security of Jericho. And the race began at 7:01, and the race that began at 7:01 is 7 weeks and 1 day before America's walls of security are predicted to collapse in a second 9/11. Again, with the sinking of the USS warships on July 26th. That's amazing. The predicted sinking of U.S. warships is symbolic of the flood judgment. Horse number 9, 9 symbolizing judgment, won $1,200,000. The flood began in the Bible after God said it would 120 years prior to the flood, which is what is hinted at with 1,200,000. That hints at 120. And because it's number 9, that confirms the matter. It's a second witness. Because the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment, which was what the flood was, which was warned of 120 years in advance. By the way, in the Bible, the flood began 1,656 years after Adam. 1,656 plus 120 is 1776, the year the U.S. was founded. So, from the beginning of America, the end of America was baked into it because the end of America is the end times. one thing to add here too is one of the reasons why from the Bible the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment is because of Genesis chapter 9, which talks about how God used the flood as judgment. Or God speaks to Noah in that chapter about this and gives Noah his sign regarding judgment, the rainbow, which is why, incidentally, the enemy has incorporated the symbol of the rainbow for its purposes. Now, what's interesting too is that this Belmont Stakes race occurred in the rainbow month, according to the enemy. So, so I wrote it right here, actually. Okay, so the flood began 1,656 years after Adam. By the way, I don't take this literally. Some Christians do. I don't. It's, for me, symbolism. The earth is much older, and human history is much older than 1,656 years. But for God's purposes that I don't completely understand, but have an idea, it's symbolism. It's beautiful symbolism. It's perfect for his purposes here with these numbers. Okay, now, again, 726, the U.S. warships will be sunk, will be 74 days. Okay, so, this is a separate thing from this video, this Belmont Stakes theme, but this predicted date of the U.S. warships will be 74 days, which hints at America, 7-4, which is also, coincidentally, 1776 hours. I mean, what's with that coincidence, right? What is with that? So America was born on the date 7-4 in 1776, and it just so happens that a period of 74 days is the equivalent of 1776 hours. What's with that? Well, one thing that's with that is this paragraph that I'm reading, okay? Because this thing for America, this turning point for America, no pun intended, but actually Charlie Kirk is related to all of this and the symbolism of turning point. But this turning point for America, which is this prediction of U.S. warships being sunk in a second 9/11 on July 26th, will be 74 days, which is the equivalent of 1776 hours, which gives us America. And it's also, get this, 74 days is also 1,065,600 minutes, which hints at the 1,656 years in the Bible between Adam and the flood. And of course, the sinking of warships, well, not of course, but the sinking of warships will be symbolism for a flood. Anyway, what happened 74 days before this prediction? This was the day that Trump, Marco Rubio, and Musk were in China, which gives us more signs that I'll explain here. Marco as in mark of the Antichrist, Rubio, which means red as in red dragon, Musk as in SpaceX dragon capsule, but also X, which is symbolic of the mark in God's signs. They were in China, which is the red dragon, okay? And this is all pointing to prophecy, which includes the red dragon in the book of Revelation. Anyway, this date that they were there was May 13th. That day was 9,011 days after 9/11. Okay, let's move on because that's not really even related to this video. The 9th and last placed horse was number 2, which hints at 9 and 1 plus 1 and 9/11. So we have another way that this is all pointing to 9/11 through the 9th and last placed horse, which was number 2. The name of this horse, the 9th one, the 9th placed one, is Power Shift. The date of the race, 6/6, is 6 times 6 times 6% of a calendar year before the predicted plane crash on August 2nd, 2028, that will cause a power shift or lead to a power shift in America. It is predicted that Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom, the two predicted running mates for the Democrat Party in 2028, will die in a plane crash, specifically in St. Louis, specifically into Busch Stadium, on August 2nd, 2028. Okay? And as a result, the Democrat Party, in an emergency, will nominate Michelle and Barack Obama. The number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy is 666. Obama is the Antichrist. And so that's why this predicted plane crash, which will change history, will be 6 times 6 times 6% of a year after the state 6-6, in which the ninth horse was power shift. And the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment. And the Antichrist is God's judgment on America. Okay? Now, the last of 3 races in Saratoga Springs, because again, the race has been held in Saratoga Springs for the last 3 years because of construction. The last 3 races in Saratoga Springs that began 3 minutes early due to impending weather is exactly the 33rd prime number of weeks before the predicted power shift on July 20th, 2029, when Obama is predicted to return to the White House. It will be Obama's 3rd term. And he will serve as president again for a 3rd term after Michelle steps down, which is predicted to occur on June 17th, 2029. Okay, so the horse that won the race was horse number 3 times 3. The 3rd placed horse was Renegade, which was Obama's nickname when he was in the White House. Horse number 3 times 3 pointed to the last and 3 times 3rd placed horse, power shift, which hints at the predicted power shift in the White House on January 20th, 2029, the 33rd prime number of weeks after the race that was held on the date 3+3 in the month 3+3. That was the 3rd Saratoga Springs race that began 3 minutes early. So you can see there's a pattern here, and it's all to confirm the power shift the 33rd prime number of weeks later. I forget what the 33rd prime number of weeks is. It's 137 weeks. The 4+4th placed horse was ridden by jockey Dylan Davis, which gives us DD, which gives us 4 and 4. D being the 4th letter of the alphabet, which gives us the 44th president, which is what is hinted at with the 4+4th placed horse. And what is the second witness for that is the DD, 4-4. And that's how God's big picture of signs works, on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming in a matter. As I said that, the clock of this recording, as I began saying that, the clock ticked for 40 minutes, 4 minutes, 40 seconds. And then as I finished saying that, the clock ticked 4 minutes and 44 seconds. Now that is only a personal sign. I'm just mentioning that for fun, because that's not how God's signs works. This isn't about personal revelation, as you can tell. I'm just throwing that in, okay? Now, the following horse to cross the finish line after the 4+4th placed horse was Power Shift, which hinted at the power shifting back to the 44th president. The name of the 4+4th horse is Otenho, which hints at the name Obama. As funny as that sounds, I know this is the case because of this overwhelming pattern in which these names that sound like Obama hint at Obama. And you might say, well, that doesn't really sound like Obama if you ask me. Well, I don't disagree with you, but it does when you know the pattern. Because, well, I'll just say there's 3 syllables here, and they begin with an O and end with a vowel. It's enough, believe me. But what confirms it beyond dispute is it's the 4th plus 4th placed horse and the initials DD. And of course the power shift horse coming right after that. So yeah, the name of the horse hints at Obama. Now the 4th plus 4th horse, the 4 plus 4th placed horse that was ridden by Dylan Davis, as in 4-4, and named Otenho, as in Obama, was horse number 5. The 8th place horse, that was number 5, hints at the 5th through 8th king's prophecy in the Bible that identifies Obama as the Antichrist king. And Obama moved to Chicago to begin his life in politics in the year 85. Hence the 8th placed horse, that was number 5. Or, if you will, the number 5 horse that placed 8th, as in the 5th through 8th king's prophecy. Now, when I say that Obama is identified through that prophecy, it's actually a secondary symbolic fulfillment of that prophecy. The primary, obvious, clear fulfillment of that prophecy, or rather, insight of that prophecy, identifies Pope Francis. But there are 2 antichrists described in Bible prophecy. And in a roundabout way, through a creative thing that God has done, God has used this prophecy to also identify Obama. And that begins with this 7 kings lineage that began in the year 77 with Jimmy Carter. Okay, now Trump is the 7th king in that, 7th king. Trump, by the way, being inaugurated when he was 70 or 7 months and 7 days old in the year ending in 7, and winning the election by 77 electoral votes. Anyway, Trump being the 7th king after Carter there, right? And Obama will follow Trump, okay? Not exactly, because briefly J.D. Vance will be president, and then briefly Michelle Obama will be president, but that's neither here nor there. It's all abstract symbolism, okay? All right, so yeah. And Obama moved to Chicago in 85. That's a seminal year in Obama's history. Now, in the state Senate, Obama represented the District 13. The winner of the race was the 13th in history to win the Kentucky Derby and Belmont Stakes. This is interesting because 13 horses have won the Triple Crown, which hints at king, as in the Antichrist king. And also the number 13 symbolizes the Antichrist in Bible prophecy, including Revelation chapter 13, which is why Obama represented District 13. But anyway, 13 horses won the Kentucky Derby and Belmont Stakes, and only those 2, and then there were another 13 that won all 3. Okay? And that's more interesting too, because again, this is all pointing to the day of the predicted 13% loss in the stock market, which I'm getting to in a second here, and which is actually 9 days after horse number 9 won, but I'm getting to that. But also 13 symbolizing America and this prediction for the U.S. warships being sunk on the 26th of the month, which is 13 plus 13, in the year 26th, 13 plus 13. All right. Now, the trainer of the 4 plus 4th placed horse, Otenho, as in Obama, is Chad Brown. Brown, symbolic of Obama, the first black president. CB, Chad Brown, CB gives us 3 and 2, which hints at 32, which is the equivalent of the name Obama in simple English gematria. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. Brown's horse in the Belmont Stakes placed 4 plus 4th. Brown was the trainer of Empire Maker, which won the Triple Crown race. Which won one Triple Crown race, the Belmont Stakes. And again, this Otenho horse placed 4 plus 4th in the Belmont Stakes. Okay, so this trainer also trained Empire Maker, which won the Belmont Stakes. And if I'm not mistaken, that was the only horse that won the Belmont Stakes for this trainer to make it more stand out. Now, Empire Maker, what's the point? Well, why Empire Maker? Empire Maker won the Belmont Stakes in 2003. 2003 hints at the number 23. And this was 23 years ago, before Brown's 4 plus 4th placed horse. This is a classic. Again, I use that word classic because this is how it works. God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel. This is a classic pairing of 23 and 44, because Obama wore number 23 in high school basketball, the 44th president. So 23 years from the race in 2003 to the 4 plus 4th placed horse is a pairing of 23 and 44 that confirms the signs and connections and points to number 23, Obama, the 44th president. Empire Maker was the grandsire of American Pharaoh, which is Obama. In the Bible, Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, is a type for the Antichrist. And so Obama is the American Pharaoh, which won the Triple Crown. Empire Maker was the grandsire of American Pharaoh. That's the significance of Empire Maker. But it ties into Obama through all that I've talked about here, including the name Brown and the 32 and the numbers. Again, 2003, 23 years before this 4 plus 4th placed horse, being classic confirmation of all of the relevance, because I know how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works that is only being explained on this channel. And this will be proven to be the case when this prediction comes to pass. By the way, at the beginning of the video, I mentioned controversial things. I forgot to emphasize that along the way here, but there's no debate. Obama is the second of the two antichrists, case closed, when this prediction comes to pass. I mean, in my opinion, it should already be case closed for anyone remotely interested in prophecy. And Pope Francis, it should be because it is clear from Old Testament prophecy that a pope would be the Antichrist. And it's absolutely a shame. It's shameful that Protestants have lost this information. And it's especially shameful for those that claim to be interested in prophecy. But that's where we are at, because we are on the precipice of the end times. And so the maximum number of people need to be fooled. And so that's why this knowledge that had it not been, and that's why this knowledge, which had there not been this knowledge, there wouldn't have been a Protestant Reformation, has been lost just conveniently right before the end in the last couple of decades. All right. Anyway, these things are or will be proven to be true. Case closed when this prediction comes to pass. So what I was saying here is Empire Maker was the grandsire of American Pharaoh. American Pharaoh was the first Triple Crown winner in 444 months, as in the 44th president, American Pharaoh, Barack Obama. This is also 37 years, which hints at 3 sets of 7, which is hinted at with a horse racetrack, as I explained earlier, because of the Israelites marching around the walls of security in a circuit, around a racetrack, if you will, a march, before the walls of security collapsed. And that's what's symbolized with the horse racetrack circuit. Okay? The sixth placed horse was number 6. In this race, on the date, 6-6. The name of the horse is Growth Equity. Growth Equity, okay, this is a copy-paste from the internet. Growth Equity, also known as expansion capital, is a private equity investment strategy that bridges the gap between venture capital and traditional buyouts. It provides capital to established, fast-growing companies with proven business models so that they can expand operations, enter new markets, or fund acquisitions. This hints at the current AI bubble. Growth equity, this horse growth equity hints at the AI bubble. AI is involved with the mark of the Antichrist, which in Bible prophecy is symbolized by 666, which is why growth equity was the 6th placed horse and wore number 6 on this date, 6-6. So, growth equity hints at the AI bubble, because that's exactly what this AI bubble is. It's this growth equity capital, private equity investment capital. Okay, now, AI gives us 1 and 9. A, the first letter of the alphabet. I, the 9th letter of the alphabet. The race was in Saratoga Springs, which gives us SS, and 19 and 19, which hints at AI, because AI hints at 19, 1 and 9. The first placed horse was number 9. Okay, the first placed horse was number 9. This is another 1 and 9, which hints at AI. And in this race in which the first placed horse was number 9, which hints at AI, we have this growth equity horse, which hints at the AI bubble. The first placed horse of the race in New York, in Saratoga Springs, as in AI, was number 9, as in first and number 9 equals AI, right? And this race was 9 days, in which number 9 won. It was 9 days before the predicted crash in the stock market in New York and collapse of the AI bubble on June 15th. It is predicted that the NASDAQ, as in the AI bubble, which is what the NASDAQ is currently, will lose 13% in 1 day on June 15th, 2026. First placed horse number 9, which gives us AI, was the 13th horse in history to win the Kentucky Derby and the Belmont Stakes. The race in New York, the race was in New York, and the stock exchange is in New York. So as you can see here, this is how God has communicated this 13% loss on June 15th, 9 days after number 9 won. Number 9 being the 13th horse in history to win the Kentucky Derby and the Belmont Stakes. And it's also communicated through this pattern of the AI here, which hints at the NASDAQ and the stock exchange because of growth equity. And that's the bubble. That's why the market will lose 13% in one day, because it's a bubble, but it's an AI bubble because of growth equity. Okay? This is amazing. When this prediction comes to pass, you will remember that this paragraph here could not have come from the imagination of a human being. Even if, okay, let's say, even if somehow I was able to fool you with the timestamps in this email and the post date of the video, okay, which is impossible, of course, but do you think if you are like the extremely psychopathic, like what's the word? If you are the hardcore fundamentalist, agnostic atheist, and you refuse to recognize that this prediction was made ahead of time, and you're going to delude yourself into telling yourself that somehow I was able to change the date of the post date and the email here, okay, go right ahead. But are you really going to believe that I, after the fact, made up this paragraph? Do you really think that? I mean, I could ask that same question about changing the date of the email and the post date, but do you really think that this information in this paragraph could have been created in a human being's imagination? I mean, there's something in psychology called belief perseverance, which is that when confronted with information that contradicts a person's worldview, they unconsciously block it out. Like, it doesn't affect them at all. They block it out, goes in one ear and out the other. The reason why they do it is because they are protecting their worldview. And a person's worldview is the person. A person is their worldview. We are what we believe. This is how our mind functions. To change a person's worldview is an enormous thing, which is why people avoid it. It's uncomfortable. And people are, for one thing, lazy. But also, they are full of pride, which in the Bible is the root of sin. And that's why God designed belief perseverance in the first place. Because to come to the truth about God and his ways and the Bible, etc., and the gospel of Jesus requires an enormous amount of humility, the opposite of pride. And according to the biblical worldview, life is a test of humility. And so, if you choose to remain a hardcore agnostic atheist and block out the information in this video, but I assume that if you are this type of person, you have not made it this far into this video. But if for some reason you have made it this far into this video, and you still choose to not change your worldview and therefore change who you are, well, what can I tell you? It's irrational. I mean, that's just the understatement of the century. The fact that would be irrational, but human beings aren't rational. God did not design human beings to be rational creatures. Okay? But the reason why you will choose to be irrational is your belief perseverance, but as I explained, that's because of your pride, which is the root of sin. Now, horse number 7 in the race was named Commandment. The 7th placed horse, okay, so horse number 7 was Commandment. The 7th placed horse was Vitruvian Man. In the Bible, it is commanded that people do not take the shot that will promise to supposedly perfect the body of a man. that God designed, which is what Vitruvian Man hints at, symbolizes. This is the famous sketch of Leonardo da Vinci of the man within the circle, right? We all know that image, right? So Vitruvian Man, God's perfect design, cannot be augmented, cannot be perfected. To attempt to do so is to mark it. To attempt to change and alter the DNA of a human being is to mark God's creation. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Do you think that God would be happy with these CVD disease, begins with an MR and ends with an NA, SHOTs, that augment a person's DNA? And of course they do, if you believe the propaganda that they don't. That's how they work. It's transhumanism technology, right? It's part of this plan to achieve immortality without God. It's the Tower of Babel story played out in our time. That's what this is all about. And that marks you. You think God is going to let you pass down that altered DNA into future generations? Are you mad? No, of course you're not even thinking about that, because it's all about you. It's all about you and your quest for immortality. It has nothing to do with God or his design for man, or there being even a man designed by God and DNA being designed for God's purposes the way it is. And God's imperfect design for us to improve upon. This is why the flood happened. When you read the text and read between the lines, man had altered its DNA with, or through mixing with the fallen angels, as described in Genesis chapter 6. Which changed the genetics of man, which was why it symbolically needed to be wiped out. It's all symbolism, in my opinion. There wasn't a worldwide flood. There was a localized flood, which makes the story, the Black Sea. Anyway, just I add that in for those that have trouble with that stuff, because I know I do, and for good reason. The text clearly doesn't say it, that there was a worldwide flood. And just know that there are many, many, many Christians that also believe like I do. Okay, so just to give you an example of how to proceed with these stumbling blocks that you might have had, start asking the questions and figuring the answers out. Because I'm telling you, this prediction will prove to you the righteous Christian God of the Bible. So what are you going to do now? What are you going to do now? You can't continue your laziness and dismiss this. You're going to have to start actually taking action and figuring out the answers to your questions. They're out there, and now you can no longer put them off. The answers are there. We live in the age of information. You don't have to take at face value everything that your friend Christian says. There are many differing views regarding the things that are in the Bible. Now, back to what is being communicated with this Vitruvian Man. Again, horse number 7 was the commandment. The 7th placed horse was Vitruvian Man. In the Bible, it is, and by the way, the flood was in Genesis chapter 7. Forgot to add that. Which again was because of the corruption of the DNA. In the Bible, it is commanded, as in commandment, that people do not take the SHOT that will promise to supposedly perfect the body of a man, as in Vitruvian Man, that God designed. The 7th placed horse, Vitruvian Man, was number 1 in the race that began at 7:01 p.m., 7 weeks and 1 day before it is predicted that U.S. warships will be shot which is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist and the injections into the Vitruvian man. The seventh placed horse was 11 lengths back. Vitruvian man, the seventh placed horse, was 11 lengths back, which hints at Genesis 7:11, which is the verse in which the flood began. And again, the flood began because of the corruption of the Vitruvian man. And so this hints at the sinking of the U.S. warships 7 weeks and 1 day after the race that began at 7:01 p.m., in which the seventh placed horse finished 11 lengths back. The commandment in the Bible is to not take the shot, the mark. And if you do take it or have taken it, you are going to hell. Okay? And again, I'm just going to say this very calmly, okay? I know more than you the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God, and it is to prove the controversial things that I am saying. One of the biggest of all is the question of whether or not the CVD shot was the mark of the Antichrist. It was. It is in its current form. It does not need an additional something to go with it. It does not need an additional technology or a new age of dispensation or some false form of religious worship. And it does not need a new age of dispensation. In fact, one of the main reasons why the majority of quote-unquote Christians have already taken the mark of the Antichrist is it is judgment for this particular doctrine, dispensationalism. Anyway, nowhere in the Bible does it say that one cannot repent after having taken the mark. And I've heard the facetious argument for how it does, and it does not. This taking out of context this verse that Paul wrote in the book of Hebrews. Anyway, all of this is proven to be true when this prediction comes to pass. Okay? The reason for that is because this prediction will prove that this is God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is being explained on this channel. And God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections overwhelmingly proves these things. That's what God is doing with these predictions. He's communicating things. Contrary to what 99.9% of prophecy watchers are watching, I shouldn't exaggerate, but contrary to what the majority of sign watchers are watching for, which is the rapture date. But God is communicating so much more than the rapture date for years now, which hasn't been recognized, except for essentially this channel. But all of this will be proven to be true when the prediction comes to pass, that God is communicating far more than just the rapture date. Those that were looking for the rapture date missed everything else because they were looking for the rapture date and only looking for the rapture date, and for other reasons too. One reason, they weren't really watching. The vast majority of quote-unquote watchers aren't actually watching. They're trying to figure out some convoluted code in the Bible that reveals the rapture date. But that's not watching God's prophetic signs. That's one reason why the vast majority of God's prophetic signs have been completely missed by the so-called watchers. But another reason, too, is that it hasn't been appreciated that none of God's prophetic signs can be properly or fully understood without their connections and context to the other prophetic signs. It's the same with the Bible. The Bible is not a linear document. It is interconnected with everything else. It needs to be taken as a whole. It's the same with God's prophetic signs. These signs cannot be understood isolated by themselves. Just like those that try to prove dispensationalism or Calvinism isolate passages instead of taking the Bible as a whole and leaving out the rest. That clearly, blatantly contradicts their theology. Anyway, it's the same principle in God's science. Okay, so these are some of the reasons why the big picture of science patterns and connections is not being explained anywhere else. And the prediction will prove it. But the purpose of all of it, though, is to prove the controversial things that I'm saying. And to miss that, the purpose, proving the controversial things, is to miss entirely the point of this video and video channel. In my opinion, you have wasted your time. Okay, now, I think just one more thing here. The commandment in the Bible is to not take the shot, which is the mark of the beast. And a beast is a horse, or a horse is a beast. And the number of the beast in the Bible prophecy is 666. The horse, as in beast, named commandment, won $360,000, which hints at 36, which hints at 3 6s and 666. It is also 6 times 6, and 36 is also 2 times 18, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6. And the 36th triangular number, which in a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 36th row is 666. And 1 plus 2 plus 3 all the way up to 36 equals 666. Commandment won 360,000, as in 666, and had 6-to-1 morning line odds and 6.04 final odds. One last thing. The horse number 4 in the race was Renegade. Renegade was the nickname for Barack Obama when he was in the White House. The Secret Service gave him the nickname Renegade. The horse number 4, the horse wearing the number 4 in the race, was Renegade. Barack Obama was the 44th president. But in the book of Revelation, there are 4 horses in the apocalypse. This is more supporting confirmation for the relevance of this video and all of the things that I've said regarding the Belmont Stakes in general. But it's also more confirmation, of course, that Barack Obama is the end times apocalypse Antichrist. Now, the 4th horse in the apocalypse is the green horse. The color that the Belmont Stakes race uses is green. Their logo is green. And the 4th horse that's green is the horse of pestilence, as in pandemic, as in VACCINE, the SHOTs, which we have talked about in this video. We've talked about how the signs in this video point to it, this SHOT, through the Vitruvian Man, for example. The 4 horses are part of the 7 seals in the book of Revelation, and the horse Vitruvian Man finished 7th. Horse number 7 was commandment, like I explained earlier. The number 7 is the 4th prime number. Horse number 7 finished 2nd. Horse number 4 finished 3rd. Commandment, Renegade. 2nd, 3rd horse gives us 23, the number of Obama, as explained earlier. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, a Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, Jesus loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.